Hi, my name is Greg Campbell with Fortus Pilates. Today I'm going to show you how to assemble the Maple Elite Home Folding Reformer. So I've got a Maple Elite Home Folding Reformer right here. This is how you'll receive the unit, so you can see it comes virtually fully assembled. The only things that are left for you to do are to attach the shoulder rests, the rear posts, and I'll also show you how to fold and unfold the machine in this video. So let's start with the shoulder rests because I usually find they're easiest to attach when the machine is still in the folded position. So you'll have received two shoulder rests. They look like this, and they've got a metal post at the bottom, which is square. And you'll see there's also on each side of the headrest, there's a metal bracket that has two square holes in it. And what that does is it gives you a little bit of flexibility. So if you're somebody who's got narrow shoulders, you'll probably want to mount this in the innermost hole. If you've got broader shoulders, you may want to use the outer hole to give yourself a little bit more space in terms of where those shoulder rests are going to lie. So to attach those and secure them, what you'll have been given is you'll have two of these knobs and you'll have two washers. And so to secure each shoulder rest, use one knob and one washer. Just put the washer on the knob, take your shoulder rest, put it in the position that you prefer, and then you simply tighten it up from the back. And it just has to be hand tight. You don't need any tools to do this. Just snug it up with your hands and that'll keep the shoulder rest nice and secure. So that one's nice and secure. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. So I've got my other shoulder rest. I've got my knob with the washer already on it. I'll go ahead and place it in the innermost hole so it's aligned with the other one. And I'll tighten it up. Okay, so I've got my two shoulder rests secured on the reformer now. The reformer also comes with two rear posts that you'll want to attach. They go directly above the shoulder rests. You'll see there's two holes on these metal brackets for each of these posts. So all you'll do is essentially to secure these, they just screw in by hand into the holes. So you'll just put each of them in the respective hole. You'll tighten it up by hand until it's nice and snug. There we go, that one is good. And we'll repeat that on the other side. We'll snug that up. Okay. So the next thing we need to do is actually unfold the reformer. And so that's a fairly straightforward process, but if it's the first time you're doing it, I would recommend you have a second person present. It is still fairly heavy, so you do need to be careful folding and unfolding it. But let me show you what the steps are for that. So essentially what you'll do is you'll turn the machine so it's lined up with the direction in which you want to open it. And you'll see that there's a post that's here on the back part of the reformer. So what I usually do is I'll wedge my foot in between the wheels. I'll put my outer hand, my right hand, on the post that goes across, and then I can simply start pulling, and you'll see the machine starts to open. So my foot is blocking the wheel, right? If I don't have my foot there, what tends to happen when I pull on the post is the reformer just rolls around because it's on wheels. So stick your foot in there, start it opening. It'll reach a point where the weight of the machine is going to want to start to drive it to the ground. And so you'll just, at that point, all you're doing is lowering the machine gently to the ground until it's flat. So you've got the reformer open now, and the next thing that you'll do is you'll release the carriage and get the springs set up. So now that I've got the reformer in the unfolded position, the next thing I'll do is deal with the carriage. When the carriage is folded, it's going to be in a locked position. The foot bar is actually locking the carriage to keep it from moving around. And so what I need to do is release the foot bar. To do that, I'll pull the foot bar forward, which will release the locks, and then I can rotate the foot bar and release the carriage. I'll pull forward, it's now unlocked. I can rotate it around to whatever position that I want. Now the carriage is free to move, and what you'll see is the springs are actually also locked in position. Just like the carriage was locked with the foot bar, all of the springs are locked in these little retaining clips. They each have their own retaining clip. So what I need to do is release the springs before I use the reformer. And to do that, I simply pull up and they'll pop right out of their spot. So I go through all of the springs, I release them so that they can now be used. And then the other thing that I'll want to do is you'll have received 2 carriage stoppers and you'll want to put those. There's a hole in the frame here. Let me move this bar out of the way. There is a hole in the frame here on either side for the carriage stopper, and it just goes directly into that hole. What that'll do is it'll prevent the carriage from coming too far forward, right? It'll stop when it hits those carriage stoppers. So I've got the carriage unlocked, the foot bar's been released, my springs have been released, I've got my carriage stoppers in. At this point, I am ready to use the base reformer, and so I can start connecting springs however I'd like, and I can start using the reformer. So when it comes to the front of the reformer, there's 2 parts that you may need to install. They may or may not have come already installed with your reformer, and they are the Footstrap Eyehooks. You'll have 2 of those, and you'll also have 2 accessory knobs. They're both very simple to install. They don't require any tools. There are 4 holes drilled in the front frame of the reformer. The outer 2 holes are for the eyehooks for the footstrap. The inner 2 holes are the accessory knobs that you'll use when you put the platform extender or the jump board in place. So they both basically go in the same way. We'll start with the footstrap eyehooks. They'll simply screw into those outside holes and you'll just snug them up finger tight. And usually I want them oriented, you know, in a parallel to the floor position. So I'll do the same thing on the other side. I'll put my hook in there and I'll snug it up. Perfect. Okay, and then when it comes to the accessory knobs, same thing. Those, what'll happen when you put the jump board in or the platform extender, it's the screwing in of the accessory knob that will wind up pinching against that accessory and keeping it secure in the slot. So when you're installing the accessory knob initially, you just want to tighten it up a little ways because you don't want to block the platform extender or the jump board from being able to be inserted. So I'll do the same thing on the other side. I'll just screw it in part way, and I can see that it's not protruding inside the slot, so it's not going to interfere when I go to insert the jump board or the platform extender. To install the rear posts, all you need to do is take a rear post and one of the retention pins that came with the reformer, and you're going to insert the rear post into the hole on the rear of the frame. And the only thing you need to do is make sure that the pulley is facing the front of the reformer because the rope is going to wind up feeding through this pulley, so it needs to be facing the front. So essentially, and you'll see there's 3 holes on each of the posts, and there's 1 hole that's drilled in the back of the frame. And so essentially what that does is it gives you a little bit of an option in terms of the height of your rear post. So you can have it a little bit higher or a little bit lower. So essentially all you do is you insert the rear post into the hole, you insert the retention pin, and then you kind of just feel around until you get the hole that you want. Oop, missed it there. And once you find it, the retention pin will go in place and it'll lock that rear post. And then you just repeat that process on the other side, making sure that the height that's been selected is the same. So I put the post into the hole, and that's the same one, and I lock that in place. So now I've got both of my posts attached, can move on to installing the rope and the double loop strap. To install the double loop straps, all you're going to do is take your double loop, which is attached to a rope. You'll find the end of the rope, and what you'll do is you're going to feed the end of the rope through the pulley, and it doesn't matter which way because the pulley is able to rotate. So you just feed it through, and then what I usually do is I'll put the foot loop or the larger loop onto the shoulder rest, and I'll just feed this rope through. And to secure the rope, what you'll do is you'll see the carriage has these 2 eye loops, and then there's a locking mechanism in between the 2 eye loops. All you'll do is from the back, you'll insert the rope through the rear eye loop, over the locking mechanism through the front eye loop. And then when you pull, what will happen is, once it gets tight, the rope will engage automatically into the mechanism as you pull it tight. And once it's engaged, it'll, of course, keep the rope from pulling back out. So this is how you secure the rope. So that would be the first rope secured. And we'll do the same thing on the second. So I can throw it on the shoulder rest. I'll find the end of the rope. Get my tangle undone here. There we go. Feed it through the pulley to the front of the machine, through the rear eye loop, through the front eye loop, pull it tight, and my pulley's adjusted. So at this point, the machine is ready for use. You have some extra rope depending on how you have things adjusted, and you can just leave that off to the side, or what I'll often do with it is I'll kind of coil it up and make it neat just to keep it out of the way. So I'll do something like that, and I'll have it hang there. So you can do that as well. It's a personal preference thing.